Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the booming business of sustainability data. There's this entire industry that's just exploded, all built around measuring, packaging, and then selling information on how companies are handling environmental, social, and governance issues.
Right, so if you're an investor or you just keep an eye on the business world, you have definitely seen these ESG scores. But have you ever stopped to think about where they actually come from? Well, their origin story is way more complex and, frankly, way more interesting than you'd think. They don't just pop up out of nowhere, they are the final product of a really long and intricate process.
For years, the whole world of sustainability reporting has been, well, a mess. A lot of people in the industry call it the alphabet soup, and for good reason. You have this huge number of different organizations, each with its own acronym, creating all these overlapping guidelines. It just created a ton of noise and made it almost impossible to compare companies apples to apples.
So what happened? What caused this absolute explosion of data and standards? Why did everyone suddenly need all this information? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was this powerful mix of different market forces all coming together at once.
So what's driving this whole thing? It's kind of a perfect storm, really. On one side, you've got savvy investors who've realized that sustainability isn't some charity project. It's actually a core part of managing risk and finding new opportunities. And on the other side, companies themselves are waking up and seeing that, hey, being more sustainable can actually help their performance. But you know what the real kicker was? Hard evidence started coming out that showed companies with strong ESG performance could actually borrow money more cheaply. And all of a sudden, this soft data had a very real hard dollar value.
Okay, so to bring some order to that chaos and to meet this huge demand, the market did what it does best. It created a system. You can think of it as the sustainability information value chain. It's basically a system designed to turn all those raw company actions into data that's actually useful for investors making big decisions.
Let's actually trace the journey of this data. We're going to see how the industry takes all this raw, messy stuff that companies are doing and transforms it into something structured and reliable. Reliable enough to base multi-billion-dollar investment decisions on.
So here's how it works. It all starts with the reporters. That's the companies themselves, collecting data on everything from their carbon emissions to employee safety. Then, sometimes, auditors will step in to check things over and make sure the data is reliable. After that, it moves to this really crucial third step, the data providers, who pull it all together and analyze it. And only then, at the very end of the line, does it reach the end users, investors and others, right on their screens.
All right, let's zoom in on that critical third step on our assembly line, the data providers. These are the companies that sit right in the middle between the raw corporate reports and the final investment decision.
You know how firms like Bloomberg and Refinitiv became absolutely essential for traditional financial data? Well, that's what's happening here. A whole new set of power players has emerged, but for sustainability information. They've become the essential go-betweens, the interpreters, and the packagers in this new data economy. First up, you've got the data aggregators. The best way to think of them is as librarians or collectors. Their main job is just to gather massive amounts of data, either from public reports or by sending out surveys directly to companies. They take all this info, from hard numbers to paragraphs of text, and just get it all organized in one place. And then you have the ESG ratings providers. These guys are the graders. They take all that data that the aggregators collected, they apply their own unique secret sauce methodologies, and they boil it all down into a simple score or a ranking, like an A+ or a 75 out of 100. This is the ESG score you usually see getting talked about in the news. So here's the crucial difference, and it's a big one. The aggregators, they give you the raw ingredients so you can cook your own meal. They let you do your own analysis. The ratings providers, on the other hand, they serve you a finished dish. It's simple, it's easy, but you don't always get to see the recipe they used to make it. And that quote right there gets to the heart of one of the biggest debates in this entire industry. The exact methods these ratings providers use are often a black box. They're trade secrets. And this lack of transparency can make it really, really hard for companies and for the public to figure out exactly how a score was calculated. It leads to a ton of debate and confusion. Now, because this is still a pretty young, maturing industry, that assembly line we've been talking about, it still has some pretty big kinks to work out. It's getting better for sure, but it's not perfect. Let's look at some of the main challenges. First off, these sustainability reports are trying to talk to everybody at the same time. Think about it. A financial statement is pretty much just for investors. But a sustainability report, well, it's also being read by nonprofits, employees, customers, local communities.
And every single one of those groups is looking for something different. That makes it super complicated for companies to figure out what to report and how.
Second, there's a real lack of standardization in the raw data itself. I mean, imagine two companies are both reporting on employee safety. One might use incidents per million hours worked, but the company right next door uses total recordable incident rate. They're talking about the same basic thing, but they're using totally different yardsticks. And that makes trying to do a direct, reliable comparison a complete nightmare for analysts.
And finally, there's just the nature of the information we're talking about. Financial accounting is a single, well-established discipline. It's been around forever. But sustainability data, it pulls from a dozen different fields: environmental science, HR, supply chain logistics, you name it. And because it's so multidisciplinary, it means there are lots of different, valid ways to prepare the data, and that just leads to more inconsistencies.
So yeah, these are some very real challenges. But I think the key takeaway here is really one of progress. Just like financial accounting was decades ago, the sustainability data market is on a journey. It's moving away from that fragmented alphabet soup we talked about and towards standardization. It's moving from chaos to order. It's a work in progress, and that whole journey is what's shaping this industry.
And all of this leaves us with a really critical question for the future. As this information assembly line gets smoother and faster and more standardized, what's the ultimate outcome going to be? Is it going to lead to smarter investors who can really price risk and opportunity better? Will it create better companies who are pushed to improve their performance? Or will the main winners just be the data providers themselves, the ones profiting from it all? The answer to that is going to fundamentally shape how money moves and how corporations behave for decades to come.